What is going on, guys? Dylan Nossman here with Kick Sports, and I am here today to talk about not only the biggest event of the weekend in MMA, but perhaps the biggest event of all time. That's right, we're talking OKTAGON 62 going down this Saturday on October 12th in Frankfurt, Germany at Deutsche Bank Stadium. 60,000 fans in attendance. It's going to be absolutely insane. I've had a chance to talk to a couple fighters this week before, it went down. It's just really, really good stuff that OKTAGON's doing. Massive card headlined by Christian Eckerlin versus Christian Jungwirth, two legends of German MMA. Well, two title fights, I think 10 other fights outside of that. I mean, it's going to be spectacular. So, couple facts off the top. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, OKTAGON MMA, European organization based out of the Czech Republic. They've been operating since 2016, so building some momentum, particularly over the last year or two. A lot of really good fighters. Last night, Islam Dulatov just got signed from the Contender Series. He was fighting for OKTAGON prior before he moved on to the UFC, but they're doing a lot of really good homegrown talent. A lot of guys are choosing to stay there as opposed to going to the UFC. Really making a name for themselves in the European market. This is going to be OKTAGON's 11th show of 2024, and this is going to be their 20th OKTAGON event with over 10,000 fans, which is pretty significant because out of 62 events, that's almost 1/3 with over 10,000. Double 5-digit attendance numbers, which is huge. So OKTAGON's doing massive things in that regard, making a really, really good spectacle of MMA, which I think is how it should be. We always talk about, oh, this is the modern day Coliseum. These are gladiators. Well, let's treat them like gladiators. Let's get out of a fucking warehouse like the Apex does for the UFC, and let's put these guys in front of fans who deserve and love to see these athletes put their hearts, bodies, and, careers on the line here. So yeah, it's going to be a massive card. You can watch on DAZN, Octagon.tv for a pay-per-view. I believe it's about $13 to $15. So pretty affordable, and once again, better than most MMA you're going to get, particularly from some of the bigger companies these days. So starting off the top, we're going to go with Michael Deiga-Scheck versus Deniz Ilbay in the first fight. This fight's going to be on YouTube as the free prelims. You can kind of check it out, see if you want to buy it. You're going to want to buy it. I recommend it. But it's an interesting fight. Michael Deiga-Scheck, he's coming at 11-5. He's a little bit of more of a veteran. He's older. He's in his mid to late 30s at this point. He's been around the game of MMA, and he's taken on Deniz Ilbay, El Pistolero, which is interesting. I'm not sure if he has Latin American background or not, but lives in Germany. He's coming in at 6-1. His one loss coming to Corey Fry two events ago. Corey Fry, him, was a fantastic performance. Corey Fry, for those of you who don't know, is a top UK prospect fighting for OKTAGON right now. Deniz Ilbay, he is an interesting fighter. He's going to be blitzing with his big overhands. He's kind of on the shorter side for the division at 145. And frankly, I mean, no disrespect by this, but watching his last couple fights, I'm amazed that he is 6-1 because he doesn't seem to have a lot of process behind his fighting a lot of the time. He's, again, big winging punches. He's decent on the ground, but he's never doing anything he's not planning out anything on the ground. It's more like, okay, I'm going to throw an elbow. I'm going to explode to get up. Okay, I'm going to sit here and close guard. I'll throw this submission. He's not chaining things together. So, he's pretty explosive. He's strong, good athlete, but I think he's a little bit limited, especially against longer opponents who can outreach him and to kind of deal with those explosive movements. And Deiga-Scheck, while he has had a little bit of an up and down career, he's nearing the end of it. He's got extreme power. He put a dude to sleep in his last fight. Let me get his name real quick. Nicholas Trabelsi. Yes, he knocked him out less than a minute into the fight. And Scheck has been taking some boxing matches lately. So he's been doing some other stuff, really working on those aspects of his game. And he is the slight underdog in this matchup at plus 185. So it's going to be interesting to see, if you can overcome those odds. I honestly am going to be picking Michael Deiga-Scheck by knockout in the first round. I think he's got the explosiveness. I think that Ilbay is going to be running himself onto counters, and as long as he can kind of stay away from the fence and stay away from getting wrestled, I think Deiga-Scheck has a chance to kick off the card well for the German fighters. Next up, we move to the lightweight division, where we have Hafeni Nafuka taking on Arijian, the Albanian Eagle Topallaj, which this is probably my fight of the night right here. Hafeni Nafuka, he's coming off a run in the Tip Sport Game Changer €1 Million tournament. Unfortunately, he lost to Predrag Bogdanovic in his last fight, who then went on to lose to Hossein Keita, who is in the finals. So, Hafeni Nafuka, he's fought some good competition. He is on the younger end. I believe he's only 23 or 24. And he is a fantastic grappler. He's a fantastic athletic grappler, I should say. So the thing about Nafuka is he's very good submissions. He's extremely athletic, very good at, scrambles, getting out of weird positions, finding himself in weird positions. But his control on top can be a little bit can leave something to desire for sure. He oftentimes has guys just get up as soon as he, stops controlling, goes for a submission. So he's kind of single faceted when it comes to grappling. He's either going for a submission, he's controlling you, or in a scramble. He's not really mixing those things together very often. As opposed to somebody like a UFC example would be Anthony Hernandez. He's always mixing together his striking, his wrestling, his grappling, his control. He's always doing multiple things at once, where Nafuka seems to be, he has to focus on one thing at a time. So, but he's an extremely athletic man. I mean, obviously 9-1. He's got a ton of submissions to his record. His strength, his athleticism, his flexibility, fantastic. And across from him, Topallaj is a little bit of a similar case, but he's much, much more of a striker. He's very long, hands down, throwing a lot of teep kicks, front kicks, and he's got serious one-shot knockout power. And the thing about him is he's very, very adept in snatching up submissions out of scrambles. In his last fight, he grabbed a Darce choke off the fence and went down with it, or anaconda, excuse me. Finished a beautiful submission. So he's absolutely got ground skills as well. In this fight, I mean, if he keeps us on the feet, I think he has a serious chance. But at the same time, he's not somebody to mess around with on the ground. I think he can, like I said, snatch up a submission in a scramble. And Nafuka tends to be a little bit, he's open to those things. So I'm going to be going with Topallaj by finish, but Nafuka is a top-level prospect as well. And honestly, this fight could go either way. Nafuka representing Germany, representing Namibia, living in Germany, and similar, Topallaj representing Albania and also living and training in Germany. So circle this one as potentially your fight of the night. And right now the odds are pretty dang close, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we have -110 for Hafeni Nafuka and -120 for Arijian Topallaj. So that's definitely going to be a fight to keep your eye on. Moving on down the list, our third fight of the night, we have Mochamed Mochaev, which is one of my favorite names, considering we have another fighter named Mohamed Mochaev, who everybody knows and does not love, I should say. But, and he's taken on James the Honeybadger Hendin. So this is, again, back-to-back fights that could both be fight of the nights. James Hendin, former Cage Warriors fighter, English prospect. He was widely regarded up there with Paul Hughes and some of those other guys, one of the top prospects coming out of Cage Warriors. And opposed to going to the PFL or UFC, he chose to go to OKTAGON, which is, again, just huge and shows just the presence that OKTAGON has in the European MMA scene at the moment. But he's a great boxer, fantastic footwork, really cerebral fighter, just knows what he's doing, has a plan, executes that plan while he's in the cage. And when he gets on top on the ground, he is filthy. He glides through positions, he uses his elbows well. I love when he forces into half guard and just forces a guy to kind of lay on their side, fetal position, and just drops bombs into their head. I mean, he's really adept. He finished his last fight for OKTAGON by ground and pound, and he beat Jakob Donal, who is actually an established and very well-known and well-liked fighter in OKTAGON. So for him to beat a Czech product like that in his home promotion was very, very big. So he's going to have his hands full, though. He's taking on Mochamed Mochaev, who was honestly one of the favorites to go deep in the Tipsport Game Changer tournament, but lost his last time out against Koidan Duque, who's probably one of the best stories in the tournament. 38-year-old Spanish dock worker. I've spoken about him on this channel before. Really, really awesome story. And the big surprise was him beating Mochaev. He was a huge underdog, and with his jab, his takedown defense, and just kind of scrappiness, he ended up beating the younger fighter and giving him his second loss of his career. So in this fight, I think it might be a similar story, because on the feet, Mochaev can be a little bit uncomfortable. He's definitely more of a grappler. But if Hendin can keep it on the feet, keep it in the boxing, pressure him to the fence, and then, make Mochaev grapple off the back foot, I think Hendin is going to have a really, really good chance. In his last fight, he was great at stuffing the takedowns and grabbing the front headlock off the takedown and then turning that into offense for himself, as opposed to just defending the takedown to get back to the feet. So, it's going to be some really interesting looks. I think both these guys are, once again, top European prospects. And between this fight and the last one, I mean, there's just these are four guys who very easily could be at the top levels, in the UFC beating guys. But they're in Octagon. That's where they choose to be. So very good fight. And I'm going to take James Hendin by second or third round, TKO or submission. I think he's going to really wear down in the gas tank of Mochaev and through attrition again the finish. So looks like I went a little bit out of order here, but we also have Pavol Longer versus Will Fleury in the light heavyweight division. This is listed as the #1 contender fight for the light heavyweight division. So Pavol Longer in his last fight absolutely dogged it back after getting mauled pretty early on by Mark Ducis. And then he just, stuck in there and got the job done at the end of the first round, won by TKO. And his only loss in his last few fights has come to Carlos Vemola, who is the current champion. He'll be taking on Samuel Kristofich next month for the light heavyweight strap. But Pavol Longer, he's just, tough guy, very serious, very Eastern European. My buddy Anik for Energy TV had a chance to interview Pavol this week. Go check that out if you have a chance. Really, really good to hear the kind of, the other side, fatherhood, the things outside the cage for him. But he's taken on Will Fleury, who is a well-known commodity on the UK and Irish scene, fought for the PFL and Bellator for a bit, but has recently moved to Octagon. He won his last fight. He's just, kind of an all-around tough customer. He's good on the ground. He's game on the feet. He'll hang in there. He'll swing with you. This is going to be a good fight. Again, maybe not the most technical, but both these guys are extremely tough, and this is not going to be a fight where we see one guy just get knocked down and go out. I mean, we're going to see we could see a long fight, but we still could get a finish to this one. That's all I'm saying. So I think the age and the potential, quality of competition goes to Will Fleury, but Pavol Longer's definitely been in Octagon longer. This is his, these are his grounds, and he's faced some really high level competition as well. And his only loss to Carlos Vemola just shows he's really top level in this division for Octagon, and I think he definitely has a very good chance to win this. But if I was to be betting on this fight, I believe Fleury is about -325 for Will Fleury, +205 for Pavol Longer. So, Pavol Longer by TKO, very, very legitimate, but I think Fleury is probably the safe bet. Nice little parlay piece there. Moving on, we have our last fight of the prelims and our first of 3 title fights for the evening. We have Katharina Dalisda taking on Mallory Martin. This is a fantastic fight and a rematch. So Katharina Dalisda, she is the strawweight queen at Octagon. She's been the champion. This is going to be her third title defense if she can pull it off. She's just a really, really, really good female fighter. I mean, she is 34 years old, so definitely nearing kind of the end of the career, but once again, a real pioneer for German MMA and German women's MMA. Fights out of a southpaw stance. She is very, very good with her left hand. She dropped Mallory Martin in their first fight with that. Really good with the left kick, and she's a fantastic wrestler and grappler as well. She's gotten ground and pound finishes. She got submissions. She's about as well-rounded as they come. The big thing watching the tape for me that I noticed in the first fight for Martin and Dalisda was Martin did not play the lead foot battle at all. Almost all the time, Dalisda was circling to her right and opening up her rear kick and her rear hand. And that's actually what dropped Martin in the first round and did most of the work throughout the second 2 rounds as well that got Dalisda the decision. So for Martin to have a chance in this fight, she's really going to need to come out, pay attention to where the lead foot is, cut that cage, and make sure that she can't just get circled around the whole time and let the power weapons land. Martin, another very experienced fighter. She's coming off a run at the UFC, 1-3 in the promotion, and she did receive a title shot with Octagon immediately following her run with the UFC. Obviously lost that one to Dalisda, but now has rattled off 2 wins consecutively, both by decision. So she's back in that position to challenge for the belt. Again, her grappling is really, I think, where she's going to be able to find the most success. Dalisda's good on the ground, but if she can put her on her back, control her, and really start to, chip away with the ground and pound, force Dalisda to use some of that energy. And again, like I said, focusing on the lead foot battle on the feet is going to be huge. If she doesn't do that, I don't see her winning this fight. One of my best bets of the evening is actually Katharina Dalisda, -260 money line. I think she really has all the momentum and the advantages in this fight, and fighting in front of her home crowd, 60,000 fans is going to be absolutely massive for her. So looking for Dalisda to take this fight, probably by decision, but she could get a TKO in over 5 rounds if, Martin does not do those things that I mentioned previously, like, really paying attention to the lead foot battle or getting active with the grappling early. So this is going to be a great fight, and I've seen some people comment online. They're like, "Oh, a title fight on the prelims. This is disrespectful towards women MMA." You know, but for a lot of you who have not watched a lot of European MMA, a lot of times this is actually like the co-main event. This is a really, really respected fight. They do a halftime show as opposed to a normal like prelims to main card like the UFC does, where it's like, all right, now we're heading to pay-per-view. It's like, no, this is the halfway of the event. People take a break. They get to watch musical performances. It's like, it's a really big deal to be the last prelim before the halftime show. So a lot of respect for both these girls. And obviously Dalisda is very, very well respected within OKTAGON and the German MMA community. So no disrespect towards them putting that fight here. Halftime show is going to be John Newman. Blame It on the Night. Calvin Harris song, if you remember that one. Love Me Again. He hasn't actually really made music in a long time, but still, shouts to OKTAGON for getting a good name. And I think it's going to be a great show to split up the prelims and main card. And moving on to the main card, opening up, we have Max Holzer versus Mohamed Trabelsi. Max Holzer is one of those guys that OKTAGON's been building for a while, coming in with an 8-0 record. He's pretty funny online, does a lot of Batman content. He's a good guy to follow, and again, not only just a good guy, but a fantastic fighter. Really, really good wrestler. You don't see a lot of traditional wrestling style guys coming out of Germany, but he's coming in with 6 submission wins. He's fantastic on the ground. If he gets you up against the cage, it's very, very difficult to beat Max. He's great with his underhooks, great at getting to the legs, and once he gets on top, he's going to work his way to the back, work his way to mount, and most likely choke you out. His last fight, he ate quite a bit of punishment, to be completely honest. He fought Karela, and he was hanging in there a little bit too much, to be honest, eating some shots on the chin. He has a fantastic chin, but as the competition gets stiffer, you're not going to want to test that chin. You got to, be safe, be smart, keep the head offline, and strike and wrestle when you need to. But his opponent, Mohamed Trabelsi, coming off of a run with Brave CF. I never fought for the promotion, representing the German heritage as well. But he's coming in with a record of 12-7. I've watched a little bit of his fights for Brave CF, and I think the reason they booked this fight is because this guy is way too comfortable with his back up against the cage. He pretty much off the bat is willing to circle away outside of the black line. And for a guy like Max Holzer, who his bread and butter is getting up guys up against the cage, wrestling them down, and then using that cage to take the back, essentially. I think this is going to be a very quick first-round submission or TKO on the ground for Max Holzer. Again, he's one of those kind of stars they're building in Germany. And 8-0 versus 12-7, you kind of see it in the records here. This is more of a setup fight than anything, but Max is 100% a guy to watch and somebody who's going to be on the, probably the radar for the featherweight title here in a couple of years for OKTAGON. So good fight, but I definitely would be looking to pick Holzer if you are a betting man. The next fight on the card is another one that is just absolutely fantastic. Could be fight of the night, and this one also is a little special to me because I had the chance to speak with Niko Samsonidse this week ahead of this fight. He's taken on Daniel Torres, former KSW champ, the only man to beat Saladin Parnas back in KSW. Obviously lost that belt and is recently coming off of a loss in the Tip Sport Game Changer tournament against Mateusz Legierski, but he was massively undersized. He moved up from 145 to 155 for that tournament at the chance to win €1 million. Didn't quite happen, so he's back down at his natural weight class, but he's facing a similarly framed opponent in Niko Samsonidse. He's tall, he's lanky, he's fantastic on the ground. Samsonidse has a great jab, and he's really just a cerebral fighter. Very smart guy, has a master's in social work. He, works with refugee kids to help them acclimate to Germany. He does a ton of cool work, and also the shirts that he did this for this fight camp, the One Love shirt. One Love, there we go. He's donating half the proceeds to the children of Gaza who are under attack by Israel right now, which is wonderful. I love to see people helping out kids, especially in horrible situations like that. So big shout out to Niko Samsonidse, tremendous guy. But yeah, he's one of the best MMA grapplers in Germany. You can go to my Instagram at DSK Combat Sports and see the highlight that I have of him. He, tremendous triangle chokes off of his back. He's good, good takedown defense, creative scrambles. And again, like I said, that jab is really going to do a lot of work for him in this fight, especially with the reach and length advantage going to him. So look for Samsonidse. I'm probably going to say by decision. Daniel Torres is a tough customer. He does not get out of there easy, but I really like Samsonidse to win on his home turf, in front of the home fans. Like I said, for Dalisda, 60,000 fans has got to help you a little bit in the cage. And yeah, but Daniel Torres, once again, live dog. I believe this fight's really close in the odds. I think Samsonidse is minus 175. Daniel Torres coming in at plus 145. So yeah, outstanding fight again in the featherweight division, and look for either the winner of this fight to be coming for the title shot very, very soon after that. Now, moving to the big meat of the main card, we have Mad Max Coga taking on Antun Racic. Max Coga, another one of those just absolute legends of German MMA. He's been around the scene for a long time. NFC, German Martial Championship. He's won a bunch of belts, Superior Fighting Championship. I mean, this guy's about as decorated as they come. He's nearing the end of his career as well. He's going to be 30, or he just turned 35 in June. So, he's been around. He fought for the PFL briefly, 1-2 record there. But really, I mean, he's made his money and his name on the German scene, collecting belts. He's a good striker. He's a good grappler. He has a lot of knockouts, 13 knockouts on his record. Big, powerful right hand, big, powerful rear kick, which is huge in southpaw matchups, obviously, which I think watching him, he's one of those one of those rare right-handed fighters who is actually better fighting southpaws than he is fighting other orthodox fighters, just based on the weapons he chooses to use. And this is an interesting fight. His opponent, Antun Racic, 27 or 20. Excuse me. So Max Koga's 26-8. Yeah, Antun Racic 27-11-1. He has not fought in about a year, but his last fight and most of his fights in his career have come at bantamweight, and this fight is up at 155 pounds. Racic is 5'5". He's coming in, a very short and stout fighter. His whole game revolves around his overhand and his double legs. Doesn't have a lot of finishing power even at bantamweight, so up at lightweight, I don't really see him having much pop or anything that Koga's going to have to worry about at all. And I think, this is some matchmaking to get Coga the victory for sure. He's, again, not to reiterate, but he's a legend of German MMA. They absolutely love him. I'm sure a lot of the fans that are going to be there are there for Coga. And yeah, he's going to probably finish Racic before the third round, I'd say. I'd say there's a very good chance of that. So another one of those fights I think is pretty easy to pick once you know a little bit of background. Before we move on, my special OKTAGON parlay of the week, if anybody is looking to bet on this, lines available on betonline.ag. Katharina Dalisda, Max Holzer, Max Coga, three-way parlay should get you about plus 180 to plus 200 odds. I think that's a moneymaker right there. All three are going to win in front of the German crowd, so cash it. Thank me later. Anyways, moving on. We have a number one contender fight in the heavyweight division. We have Lazar Todev taking on Adam Pallaj, which, as we know from watching, anybody who watches MMA knows the heavyweight division is not that deep. So I was not particularly impressed by either of these guys, but Adam Pallaj in particular has good power and is at least relatively athletic for the heavyweight division. He moves well. Not great off of his back. He got submitted in his last fight, actually, by arm triangle. But he has exceptional power in the hands and can knock just about anybody out. He had a beautiful overhand punch, one-shot KO to defeat the opponent prior to his submission loss. And so he had a fantastic overhand punch to beat Dutchman, and then actually lost to Todev once before. Came back to beat Sofiane Bukachu, who was a French fighter, staple of that scene, and lost to Stuart Austin. So there's a chance at redemption for Pallaj against Todev. I actually really favor Pallaj if he makes the right decision in this fight, because Todev is far too comfortable being on the back foot, circling away, and Pallaj in his last couple fights, he actually cuts the cage well for a heavyweight. So if he can keep Todev behind the black, Todev doesn't seem to have many weapons outside of his boxing that he likes to use. So, for Pallaj, if he can use the kicks, keep Todev on the back foot, I think he really has a good chance to catch him with a big shot or just outpace him throughout 3 rounds. So I'm going with Pallaj in this fight. But again, this is heavyweight MMA. You never know. And he has lost to Todev before. So it's going to be an interesting one for sure. And the co-main event, this one is going to be absolutely massive. We have Patrick the Inspector Kincel, legend of Czech MMA, probably one of the best fighters from the Czech Republic to ever come or to ever fight. He is going for his 4th title defense for the Octagon belt. He's beat names such as Patrick the Inspector Kincel going for his 5th, All right, co-main event. This fight is absolutely massive. We have Patrick the Inspector Kincel taking on Karim Anigzek. Patrick the Inspector Kincel, he is legend of Czech MMA. He only has been in Octagon for 4 fights, but he won the belt in his first fight and since then has just racked up the title defenses. This will be his 4th title defense if he's able to beat Anigzek. His last loss is coming to Roberto Soldic in KSW. And other than that, he's won 9 out of his last 10. Fantastically well-rounded middleweight, really, really good footwork. He's incredibly athletic and quick for a man of his size. And he really mixes his tools well. He punches, he kicks, he knees, he's got good grappling, he'll submit you. He's got arm triangles, he's got rear naked chokes. He's a really, really, really smart fighter. Although I was watching the Octagon little preview show on YouTube, and they were interviewing him, and he was talking about how he started his weight cut a little late, and this is probably the worst he's felt going into a fight as of late, and he's really not he's ready to torture himself, and he believes that if he can fight through, he can get the win. But it was not very confident sounding, and obviously, with translation to English, it's tough to say sometimes, but definitely some question marks there with Kincel in this fight. And his opponent, Karim Anigzek, I mean, this guy's a killer. Absolutely dangerous on the feet. Beautiful kicks, beautiful punches, super long. He will, he wants to strike, but he's more than happy to go to the ground as well. He's trained with Alex Bejeda in the past. He's a former champion of EMC. He has fought for GMC for most of his career. I mean, this guy's, again, he's from Turkey, but emigrated to Germany at a young age, and he's just a fantastic, huge for the fans of Germany. They really, really love this guy, and this is a huge opportunity for him to, fight the Czech champion for the Czech promotion in Germany in front of his home crowd as the title challenger. It's going to be very interesting to see if, how he's able to translate that and see if he can, pull off the upset, yet also with having the crowd behind his back, if that'll help the mentality at all. I personally think Kincel has all the tools to win, but Anigzek, if Kincel is not really, with it, if his weight cut was not as good, if he's not feeling like normal, I think he could get caught here. I mean, he's been around for a long time. Kincel 28, 10, and 1. So, nearly 40 professional fights, and Anigzek 20 and 4. I mean, he's coming off a win in a boxing match. He's just really a fantastic fighter. So this fight could go either way, but if I had to lean way, I would go with Karim Anigzek to upset Patrick Kincel and win the belt for Octagon, the middleweight division. Moving on to the main event, probably the biggest fight in German MMA history. This is going to be for the King of Germany belt. I have not seen this belt. I'm not sure what it looks like. I'm sure it'll be cool. Octagon always does a great job with those types of things. And this is against Christian Jungwirth versus Christian Eckerlin. I mean, this is two guys who have done so much for the scene of German MMA. Christian Jungwirth, definitely kind of more the street story. Went to prison, came out, worked his ass off, fought his way to the top, and now here he is, selling out a 60,000 seat stadium in his home country. And Christian Jungwirth, on the other hand, he's a lot more technical, a lot more of athlete type of fighter. He's very, very good with his jab, good footwork. He's very educated and well-rounded for 170. He's he's been known to just frustrate his opponents with his jab and his pressure. And guys have literally quit on the stool in between rounds after not being able to get any offense going. And Jungwirth, on the other hand, he's just a dog. He's a bruiser. He'll throw the kitchen sink at you, trying to get you out of there. He is tough as nails. And again, he fights with so much pride, not only for himself, but his family, his backstory, and his country. I mean, he's one of those fighters that on paper, it doesn't always look like he should win the fight, but then somehow, some way, he just, brings it from within him to get the victory. So, yeah, this is going to be a very interesting fight. I think the jab of Youngworth is going to make the biggest difference if he can really, put the work on Eckerlin. Or, sorry. Yeah, so I think the story of this fight is going to be Eckerlin's jab. I think if he can put it on Youngworth early, break his nose, bust him up a little bit, make it hard to breathe, put him on the back foot, I think it's going to be very hard for Youngworth to fight back throughout this fight. But again, Youngworth has the ultimate fighting spirit, and I could see him, getting it done by decision. I could see him knocking him out, although Eckerlin is very tough as well. I mean, I don't really see a finish happening in this fight, but this is going to be one of those fights that, like, it's just going to be an absolute war. I mean, these guys are going to be bloodied and beaten, and they're going to raise each other's hands after the fight, and the entire soccer stadium of Deutsche Bank Park is going to be going nuts. And whoever wins will rightfully be crowned the king of Germany. So, yeah, very, very, very exciting fight in the main event. And that about wraps it up for Octagon 62. I personally, again, I'm a huge fan of European MMA, huge fan of Octagon in general, but this has been the most excited I've been for a fight card all year. Last couple of years, Octagon has reignited my love for MMA. The UFC kind of started to kill it there for a bit, and it's good to see a promotion doing things right. So make sure to tune in on DAZN or Octagon.tv on Saturday. First fight is on YouTube. Starts 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time, or depending on where your time zone is, you can probably do the math from there. Again, promotions doing good things deserve the respect and attention, and Octagon's doing great things. So, yeah, switch it up. Skip the UFC this week and tune in to some tremendous European MMA. Follow me on Instagram at DSK Combat Sports. Check out my interview with Niko Samsonidse. I'll have it right up there in the corner. And yeah, happy fighting.